We're just over the halfway point for Hearthstone Grandmasters here in Europe. I'm Matt's Admirable. I'm joined by Darroch Brown, and we are getting into our fourth match of the day. It's going to be Bunnyhoppor taking on Kolento, and we just came off of a game that I am still partially flabbergasted by with Tice versus Silvername. Tice took it as a score of 2-1. But getting a Spear to the Frog from a Conjurer's Calling and then popping off as your 0-cost spells thanks to Sorcerer's Apprentice draw the rest of your 1-cost spells, which continue to cost 0.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. This day has been so exciting so far. Casey getting absolutely destroyed, losing his first series here in Grandmasters. Power versus Hunter Ace, such a close, such a difficult to play game. I already have a stream of messages from Hunter Ace on Twitter telling me every single minute mistake he made throughout the course of that series. And then for Tice versus Silvername at the end there, that last game was just the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
If there's two players I would have expected to be able to do it, of course, it's the two biggest streaming names that we have here in the European Grandmasters. Kolento versus Bunnyhoppor, and you see two more matches coming up after that with Viper, the only Warlock that's in Grandmasters this week. And so for this matchup, taking a look at it on paper, it's kind of unique, where Kolento has continued to go for his take on Cyclone Mage, which includes the copies of Magic Dart Frog in the main deck. And Bunnyhoppor, a pretty stark change from what he had in week number 1, where he's moved over to the mid-range Hunter, which, you and I talked about a bit. It seemed like it was missing something in week number 1, and which was really pressure at the 2-drop slot, the ability to snowball a game. And that's exactly what Bunnyhoppor's brought. He's included 2 copies of Headhunter's Hatchet and 2 copies of Scavenging Hyena, as we can take a look at his list. He had reached number 3 and number 5 on ladder with this deck.
On 2 different servers at the same time.
I started playing it a bit because I had some Hunter quests. They were done awfully quick with this deck.
Really? It does play very quick indeed if you have, like you said, Scavenging Hyena, Headhunter's Hatchet in the early game. And I think Bunnyhoppor's reason for playing this deck is twofold. Like you said, he's found a list that works in the current meta primarily. And also, as you also said, rank 3 and rank 5, this is kind of a comfort deck for him. This is something we haven't been seeing too much in Grandmasters, where players are playing the deck that they are so strong with that it overcomes the fact that it may not be the best deck in the meta at the moment.
Yeah.
Bunnyhoppor may disagree with that statement. He may think that Hunter is just the most well-suited deck at the moment, but clearly the majority of players disagree with him, given that he is the only Beast Hunter that we have here in Europe.
Yeah, and honestly, taking a look at the secondary decks too, some pretty cool tech against Warrior with the Double Savannah Highmane and the Augmented Elec, so that when you Dire Frenzy, you get extra copies of something. Pretty cool.
A very cute play. You can even go for the Dire Frenzy on the Augmented Elec and shuffle more in, so the second one can also shuffle more in. That might be getting a little bit greedy at that point.
Hey, it's 3 mana 6/7 at that point. I'll take it. Taking a look at Kolento's deck, the thing that really stands out to me is just the choice of spells and minions that he's included here. Magic Dart Frog and Arcane Missiles, he clearly wants to be able to handle early game pressure, as has been pretty much a staple of Kolento's play for the last couple of years, fighting aggressively for board.
And if you wanted to talk about a matchup where Magic Dart Frog would be good, this is one of them. A deck where a lot of the early minions are 1 health in the, the Timberwolves, the Spring Paws, 2 health on the Scavenging Hyena. The Dart Frogs and the Arcane Missiles could hit some very important targets here for Kolento. As I would say, he's drawing, despite it being a very unique build of Mage, quite a lot of praise for it. I think Psycho was tweeting out that he drew a lot of inspiration from Kolento this week, or calling him one of the 3 gods of Hearthstone, showing a lot of respect for him there. And I mean, hey, Psycho is 4-0 now in the Grandmasters.
And frankly, I don't disagree with him. I mean, I made the comment earlier, and even before the show to you, that I dislike Sandbinder in the deck. It feels like it's just clunky. It feels like I'm not doing enough. And Kolento agrees with that. He's like, look, if I'm not drawing my key cards, I'm probably not winning anyway. Like, I need to be able to fill up my hand, I need to be able to cycle through the deck, and I need to be able to make big power turns. And if I'm going to do that, the best way to get that time isn't putting Sandbinder in for consistency. It's fighting aggressively for board to shut down my opponent's assault and buy extra time. And frankly, I don't disagree with him.
It's a very interesting way of looking at it. He does slot it in his secondary deck, which I believe is probably his anti-mage tech. But even then, it's a really interesting take on anti-mage, if that is indeed what the deck is teched for, with Book of Spectres, Sandbinder, Rabble Bouncer, and Sea Giant. A far cry away from what the majority of players have been thinking in Snap Freeze and Frost Novas.
Yeah, I think his take on it here is that rather than make it an anti-mage deck, he's making it a supplementary package to a number of different things, which mage may be the primary focus of it. Okay. Where finding giants or finding mana cyclones or what have you can be key, because you have a lot of spells in the deck, but I think your spells against mage, who cares about those? It's Arcane Missiles and nonsense. You need to find giants for big turns. So the Sandbinder there helps you do that. The Book of Spectres can help you do that. If your opponent goes wide, you can have Rabble Bouncer and Conjurer's Calling turns, and you get into second Sea Giant for that exact same reason. I like the way his deck is built. He didn't quite get it done in his first series this week, but now we're looking at a completely different landscape where, having access to Rabble Bouncer and potentially being able to Book of Specters to help find it, I think that can be a big deal in aggressive matchups.
And I wonder if we will be seeing more of this style of thinking from other players that Kolento is showing now, where your secondary and tertiary decks kind of try to get more of a splash damage effect, where you're also targeting some of the less likely decks to be brought, like Beast Hunter, Mech Hunter, maybe an OTK Paladin, things like that, rather than just the core main decks of Warrior and Mage at the moment.
So game number 1 getting underway. And I'm always interested to see Kolento mulligan, because I feel like he just looks at the game so differently than a number of players.
Yeah. I mean, I can fully understand here the Dart Frog being kept. That makes sense, right? You could see your opponent going for a very aggressive start. We saw when he was playing against Boar Control, I believe it was, in the first week of Grandmasters, who was also bringing Beast Hunter. And Kolento was thinking, if I just go for Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling on turn 5 or turn 6, that's too slow. If he goes double Animal Companion or just curving out with 1-drops until then, you're just going to die.
It's a good way to fight it off.
And the specific hand that Bunnyhoppor has, Kolento is going to be very happy that he kept that Magic Dart Frog.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how Bunnyhoppor plays this. My experience against my limited experience, that is, with Beast Hunter versus Mage, is that if I'm going first, I like to get 1-drops rolling. I like to put them on back foots where they're having to be using their mana, but I also have not been playing against versions that include Magic Dart Frog. The second thing is when I'm going second against Mage, I often don't like to play a 1-drop on turn 1, but I like to play 2 of them on turn 2.
Interesting.
It puts them in a spot where on turn 3, if they're going to Arcane Intellect or Banana Buffoon, it means I keep 2 minions in play. And this is one of the reasons why you do it on turn 1, to try to snowball. You get so many in play, you overload the hero power.
However, Kolento is not starved for alternative ways to clear off this board. Should we see Bunnyhoppor go for Springpaw Lynx, double Springpaw, Timberwolf, Springpaw, whatever combination it may be of 2 1-drops on this turn, Kolento has in his deck the Arcane Missiles to deal with it, and of course the Magic Dart Frog. Obviously, Bunnyhoppor does not know what is in hand for Kolento, so he needs to try and figure out how much of a risk does he want to take. Because if he just passes here and doesn't play any 1-drops, a lone ping could be able to deal with it from Kolento, which is a worst-case scenario.
Wow. Shimmerfly, I have found to be quite an impressive card in the matchup, but Scavenging Hyena is about the reason you play the deck.
Got to be. Oh, you unleash the hound.
Interesting.
That's so interesting. If I was in that scenario, I would absolutely have snap-picked the Hyena. But I guess Bunnyhoppor is here clearly indicating what his plan is, which is to get ship damage in the early game, and then try and just go for a big Unleash the Hound's Timberwolf play in the later stages.
Huh.
Kolento has Frostbolt in the deck. He has Arcane Missiles to deal with these minions. The removal is much more impressive for Kolento, so I am led to wonder if Bunnyhoppor was against a much more standard build of the Mana Cyclone Mage, maybe he would have just gone with the
1-drops.
Or he would have gone with the Hyena, sorry, I mean off the option there for tracking, because there's so much less ways to answer it.
To me, that's the reason Bunnyhoppor uses tracking in that instance, is because Kolento has access to those cards. He doesn't want to fully commit to a board. So that if you're not going to fully commit to a board, that makes Scavenging Hyena way less valuable. I think against a normal Cyclone Mage, he doesn't use the turn 2 tracking. He develops 2 more 1-drops and goes full steam ahead. I think he has to pay respect to the fact that Kolento has access to those tools.
So how does he approach these turns then? Is it just Shimmerfly weaving the hero power?
Well, that's a great question, Derek. I have not been in this position.
Neither have I. And to be fair,
I like that he's weaving hero powers.
Yes, we are seeing very consistent gameplay here for Bunnyhoppor, where 1 minion on board is bad. Opponent can ping it down, and then you're left with nothing in play. 2 minions on board, it's not quite enticing enough for an Arcane Missiles. If a Dart Frog does come down, it's not the end of the world, and you're getting those hero powers in to try and blow out the game with a big Unleash the Hound's Timberwolf play.
Yep. I think we have potentially found our first Dart Frog turn, although with Sorcerer's Apprentice and with Magic Dart Frog, I could also see the hold. Because the aim right now for Kolento, I think, is to take board and then directly go into Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling.
Yes. The thing he does not want to do is just play Mountain Giant. He could go for that here with double Elemental Evocation into the Mountain Giant, but because that just instantly well, I don't want to say loses, but gets hugely punished by the deadly shot here. He has to be very cautious about going for lines like that, and therefore, I anticipate we will instead see a big, giant Conjurer's Calling turns coming up.
So how do you best set that up?
Keep as many cards in hand as possible.
It's the Shimmerfly. That's funny to me. You 9 lives Shimmerfly. Infinite Shimmerflies.
So, it's a play around Dire Frenzy, right? Because the only real difference between the two minions there is which one can be shuffled in with Dire Frenzy.
It's a very long-term plan.
I mean, it's because you have to choose to ping one of them, right? So one has to be better to ping than the other. What is the distinguishing factor that makes one better to ping than the other? I see Dire Frenzy and not much else.
I see Rush. Well, I mean, Dire Frenzy is the reason, clearly.
Right, yes, yeah, that's what I mean. Is that he thinks a 4/4 Rush is... Okay.
I was so hoping this was the play.
This is pretty funny. I'll give you that one. I mean, what else does he do? It was either this or go all in with his 1-drop minions, which then does just get blown out by a big Dark Frog or Arcane Missiles turn.
I love Shimmerfly.
It's a cool card. So now we are looking at potentially a double evocation giant coin conjurer's turn, I believe. Or is that not possible? No, that is possible, just about.
Does he need to go for that now?
Right, so that's the next step in the thinking. It's pretty strong.
It's very strong, but, you know, oftentimes with the way that your setups are going to work is what are you taking away from Bunnyhoppor when you do that? I mean, Bunnyhoppor's turn 4 was 9 lives of Shimmerfly and then play a Shimmerfly. He's not exactly beating down the door.
Yeah.
To me, it's clear he doesn't have Master's Call.
Yes.
To me, it's fairly clear that he doesn't have Dire Frenzy. I think he would have played that instead.
I agree with that too. Yep.
So what's the hand?
Reactive cards, I guess.
So if it's reactive cards, you probably can take your time. You probably want to giddy up at the same time.
I mean, what I would say is if, say, he has double Deadly Shot... Oh, no, sorry, he only runs one copy of Deadly Shot in his primary, so there is no way to kill off both of these giants here. And so I think, given that there is pretty much literally no counterplay to kill off both of these, you just go for it.
Yeah. I mean, it takes something from the Shimmerfly.
There's just not enough mana to work with. If Bunnyhoppor had more, we could obviously see Timberwolf, double Spring Paw, and then Deadly Shot to take out both minions.
Yeah, there's two things.
Just doesn't have enough.
There's two things this does. Number one, it keeps you under wraps to a Timberwolf turn to clear off a giant and then have a Deadly Shot. Number two, it disrupts Bunnyhoppor from having a Tundra Rhino to stick to the board, and then you're worried about big damage that can follow up afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think Kolento's timing here is just spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a big play, right? Like, you go Giant Conjurers on turn 4 because it's good.
Yeah. I mean, that as well. But there's also just nothing that Bunnyhoppor can do about it.
I think that's the thing he was thinking of is what iterations of cards can possibly punish me here. Deadly Shot plus Kill Command is not even available on this turn due to mana limitations.
So you traded the Shimmerfly and you get Hunter's Mark.
That's an out, I guess, to be able to clear off both these minions. The other way of looking at it is going for clearing on one of them and get down the biggest Scavenging Hyena you possibly can.
So the Scavenging Hyena will be over. Oh.
Was Revenge of the Wild better there?
No, I don't think it's better here. I think it's better with the Unleash the Hounds. So Kolento here has to be interested in taking care of the Scavenging Hyena. I think this is very dangerous.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
So Bunnyhoppor says, you know what? When your opponent is going to Conjurer's Calling, make a big minion right back. Don't let them value trade.
Exactly. The inability to value trade is absolutely crucial here.
Gets to kill a Timberwolf, which is pretty important here.
It's reasonable.
But you get to kill it with a hero power.
Yeah. But then again, if Kolento is spending 2 mana on a hero power on turn 5, Bunnyhoppor has to be pretty happy about that.
Not if the other play is Conjurer's Calling. But,
fair enough.
I mean, it's not the best Conjurer's Calling in the world here. Bunnyhoppor actually checks it if it's just Conjurer's Calling. He kills both minions.
He could he get to the point where the Hyena survives? If the Wolf dies, the Timberwolf dies this turn, Double Unleash could get it up to 9. or trading in both the dogs off of Unleash could get it to 9, then Deadly Shot. It would then die to a ping, though. So, I mean, I guess we'll worry about that next time when it actually gets to Bunnyhoppor's play.
Oh, boy.
Ooh, but because it was double Grave Horror here, what it does mean is that we could see Bunnyhoppor getting the Hyena up to 9 health.
So, if you...
Unless he sacrifices it off and then regenerates it off of Revenge of the Wild. Oh man, this turn. I mean, I guess that's bad, right? Because it obviously goes back to a 2-2.
I think you're just on a trade-off plane here. I think you're going to set Headhunter's Hatchet. I think you're going to Deadly Shot. I think you trade a minion. You go face. I mean, your hero power and weapon damage versus Kolento's remains right now is definitely winning.
Really? Do you, like, you could... I understand that if you put your Hyena to... So you sacrifice in both the dogs after playing Unleash the Hounds.
No. I don't think you do that.
Well, I'm just saying you could think about it here, where it goes to 2 health. Maybe it survives. But I guess with the Dart Frogs and the everything else, the Arcane Missiles in the deck, it's just too unlikely to survive.
Yeah, I think the plan for Bunnyhoppor, honestly, I'm seeing it from a different approach, where he's not just trying to get ultimately aggressive. What he's trying to do is get Kolento to make a powerful play, have a check to it, and then say, you know what? My hero power and the natural attrition of my cards works out better.
Well, let's see if it works out. As we can clearly see, he's going to have to get moving pretty quickly because Archmage Antonidas is the ticking clock here that will count down Bunnyhoppor's doom.
It's also just a really good turn for Kolento.
That too.
There must be a way.
This might have just been what fell into place for Bunnyhoppor as well. The fact that he was able to play this way. But mind you, he took the Unleash the Hounds over that first Scavenging Hyena, which was the way that he dealt with the Conjurer's Calling turn.
Yeah. That's true.
Everything for me points to the attrition for Bunnyhoppor pans out.
Okay, I would say everything points to the fact that Bunnyhoppor believes that is the case. I'm not necessarily sure if that is the case. Because that's his game plan, right? He's very clearly set that out. Whether or not that will work, we are obviously still yet to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot closer than is anticipated right now. I think either Kolento's going to blow him out of the water with the next couple turns, or it's going to work out.
Whoa, these are some reasonable draws. Like a big Tundra Rhino Revenge of the Wild turn can be a big clear.
Just keep chipping away.
Job's done.
Why not?
I mean, Hunter does this very well. Like when you get into an attrition battle with Hunter and you don't have major burst damage,
yeah,
I feel like that's when I get in the most trouble versus Hunter decks. Is like I'm not doing enough to counter push.
I like this as well from Bunnyhoppor of just getting in that chip damage turn after turn. That's exactly what his hand is saying at the moment, because I think in somewhat contradiction to what you're saying, it's not attrition that he's going for necessarily. It's dealing with one wave from Kolento, which he did with the mounted, or sorry, 2 waves. He dealt with 2 sets of Conjurer's Calling very effectively. And then he realized Kolento is bound to have at least 2 or 3 weak turns. That's your window of opportunity. That's where you go face as much as you can and try and close out the game with kill commands.
Oh, that's an important draw.
Wow. This board is starting to look pretty threatening for Kolento, with defensive maneuvers and aggressive maneuvers both being sent out.
Priest zone 0-2 here to draw a card.
Behold,
Right at the last second.
Mountain Giant picked up. So
That's
now,
not a bad pickup.
for Bunnyhoppor here, when does this turn get going? Because I'm looking now at Tundra Rhino, Unleash, Timberwolf for a setup. Where and how does that occur?
So if he was to go Timberwolf Unleash, he could sacrifice in 2 of the dogs off of Unleash the Hounds into Luna, then play Revenge of the Wild, which gets 4 damage to face, and then Hero Power plus Weapon gets 8. He's starting to get Kolento pretty low with whatever line he goes for here.
So weapon is 0-2. So that way you can bring back more dogs.
Yes. But he needs to decide if he wants to go for the Revenge of the Wild at all. It's not that powerful on this turn.
Quickly.
It might be the best he's ever going to get, which is what he needs to
thinking.
consider.
I don't think he's going to get better. The max you can get is 3 anyway.
Yeah. More damage coming through to face here for Bunnyhoppor, and a pretty big board to boot. Kolento needs to go for some kind of a very powerful turn here to clear things up, and Magic Dart Frog might be exactly that power turn.
Yeah, mind you, Kolento does not have Frost Nova in his deck.
He does not.
However, can the frog stabilize? No Zilliax in the deck for Kolento. He's working on 9 health the rest of this game. Shooting Star and Conjurer's Calling.
And Arcane Missiles. All of these are so tempting. Does he have to go with the missiles just to survive?
I'm curious if you need to go to the Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah, so am I.
So that you can Conjurers with Khadgar and hope to win the game. You gotta get some damage through. Bunny's up at 22, and you're at 9, and the hero power does 2 damage a turn. Like, you are on like a 3 to 4 turn clock at the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Kolento not even running Zilliax either, so the healing is pretty much non-existent in this deck.
Time. There must be a way.
In the end, he's deciding Bunnyhoppor has just put him under too much pressure in this game. Whatever he's going to do, he has to do it very fast indeed. This is a guaranteed full board clear now for Kolento if he manages to get everything off. But now that Mountain Giant is left all but unplayable.
Yeah, there's no spells in hand. There's no way to pressure back.
So what do we see on this turn? Tundra Rhino Hatchet hero power is 6 damage to the face, which potentially sets up lethal on the following turn. There's no weapon destruction in Kolento's deck. Taunts are scarce, to say the least.
There's a Frostbolt.
Okay.
You got to deliver lethal in 2 turns from Kolento's perspective.
Yeah.
I think Bunnyhoppor has a lot of ways to win this game, and at this point, take your time and account for weird random stuff that happens.
I really think I know this is just a 1-game sample size here, but I'm starting to see why players are liking this matchup against the Mage, or at the very least, not hating it. Because I know that when we've been playing this deck, or at least looking at this deck against Mage, it's looked pretty bad.
I think Scavenging Hyena is the key.
I think it's a really big component of the game plan.
Wise man once told me, if you can set up 2-turn lethal, you do it. That man was 2014 World Champion Firebat.
I remember it well. I've lost count of the number of times I've heard you say that now.
A lot.
You want to know why? Because it's true.
It's true.
And here we go. All on Kolento here to find some way of fighting back here. And he does not have it.
Well done.
Not today. Bunnyhoppor off to a 1-game lead here. And honestly, the unsung hero of this was the second Scavenging Hyena he found off the top, because he trackinged over the first in favor of Unleash the Hounds. The Unleash the Hounds was it looked like the MVP in that game because of how much work it got done in the mid-stage. But without that Scavenging Hyena, or without a big outcome from Shimmerfly, I don't think Bunnyhoppor wins that game.
I would say, however, that I think the turn that Kolento played was very much unexpected. You do not tend to expect turn 4 Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling, because he needed exactly double Evocation, Mountain Giant, and Conjurer's Calling to be able to go for that turn. So I think usually Bunnyhoppor was a little bit more on the standard way that game plays out, with just needing late game the Unleash the Hounds and the Timberwolf to push for lethal. He was thankfully, however, saved by the second Scavenging Hyena there to pull him out of that miserable start.
And Kolento, honestly, the only way I could possibly see he got out of that was if he plays a minion and then Conjurer's Calling the Scavenging Hyena afterwards.
Okay.
To try to preserve the 7
there.
That's it. Weird game, but Bunnyhoppor pretty decisive after he drew that Scavenging Hyena. So we got to do a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into game number 2 of Kolento versus Bunnyhoppor and find out if Kolento can tie things up.
So you're probably wondering why I gathered you here. Let me take a moment and break it down. We've been given black eyes by the good guys. Oh, but that's about to change. Those meddlesome mortals who've mucked up our missions will finally feel some of our pain. You see, I have a devious plan that requires a demonstrative fist. And each of you will have your dreams come true as a fiendish finger of peace. What? All right. Let me try this again. Alone, all our dreams went. Kaboom! Yes, but united we'll take the candle. No fifth again. I'm seeing what you want to do. Let me hit it. We'll come together so we can dismantle. Now here's the plot to capture your greed and intrigue. We'll take Dalaran for all that it's got. As we form an evil league.
My name is Christos Sakopoulos. My username comes from when I was a kid. I used to go to like an internet cafe with my friends to play like, I remember WoW and stuff like that. And I just had to make a character one day, and one of my friends said, your plays are phenomenal, so you can just put the name Phenomenal there. And I just did it, and then it just stuck. The thing that's unique about my playstyle, I feel, is that I sometimes think about stupid plays that other people would never even consider, and I try to get something out of it. I think people don't pay attention to details like trading or going face. I really pay attention to those things, because I think it's super important. Like even one bad trade can cost you the game a lot of times. My favorite memory was definitely when I won my first Hearthstone tournament last year in HCT Orange County. And doing that just gave me so much more confidence and made me feel like I was free again. I'd say being in Grandmasters means that I've made it to the top players of Europe, which has always been my goal. So yeah, I'm looking forward to start competing again.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for the European region. We just got to look at Fino, who is coming up in our next match, taking on Viper, looking to be the only other undefeated player standing next to Psycho in that regard. So, Bunnyhoppor versus Kolento, they have both moved on to their secondary and tertiary decks. And as we get a glimpse of these to see what's happening, it's a bit of a different story than what we've seen from the rest of the decks here. Kolento has chosen to add in a Book of Specters, a Sandbinder, a Rabble Bouncer, and a Sea Giant. Out comes an Archmage Intinitus, a Loot Hoarder, a Frostbolt, and an Arcane Missiles. Just more of a supplementary thing than an actual targeted strategy.
That's what I'm not even sure if I like it, but I'm super interested in Kolento's strategy here, because like you said, this is not a hard anti-mage tech deck. It clearly does a better job than his primary deck does against Hunter, or at the very least, so he believes. And I can understand why. It just takes out some of the early game removal cards, which could be good, but I think generally I would favor consistency in this matchup than being able to kill off a couple of 1/1s early on. And like the Archmage Antonidas, for example, in the late game, just a little bit too slow.
And you'll notice the QR code in the top right there. That is a functioning QR code. You can copy that and get that deck list straight away when you use that. So make sure you check it out if you're into that sort of thing. For Bunnyhoppor, tertiary deck, he's removed a Vicious Scalehide, a Marked Shot, a Tundra Rhino, and an Unleash the Beast. He's added in 2 Direwolf Alpha, a Deadly Shot, and a Baited Arrow. It's very clear how impactful the one attack to Beasts mechanism was in game number 1. So he's adding that in there, plus the aggression. And again, just sort of a supplementary style, not really a targeted effect here.
I think this is actually really showcasing exactly what Mage is weak to, which is not necessarily hard removal. What it is hard removal in combination with pressure. You need cards like Deadly Shot to supplement the fact that you're already ahead on board, already pushing a lot of damage, to burst through their grave horrors they're going to be throwing down in the later stages of the game. And I think Bunnyhoppor is still very much sticking to his guns in regard with his overall philosophy in this matchup, which is to curve out, do a lot of damage, and if you can, try and set up a big Unleash the Hounds Timberwolf play in the late game.
So I imagine Bunnyhoppor, you know, it's weird. Bunnyhoppor, remember, he took the Unleash the Hounds.
Yes.
From the tracking. Is this a keep?
Well, they're kind of different scenarios, right? Because if you're tracking over the Unleash the Hounds, it's gone from your deck. Whereas obviously if you mulligan, there's still 2 copies of it in your deck that you will be able to find later on.
I guess when I think about some of the most powerful turns from Kolento, one of the things I think about is literally mirror image, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mana Cyclone turns.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense to keep it.
This is what's so weird about this mid-range Hunter is I think undeniably one of the most difficult aspects of its play is mulligan. It was difficult before this year's rotation when you still had Diamol and Crackling Razormaw, but now when you have very few curve options, basically no good 2-drops to play, it becomes a lot more difficult and you have to look for these combo-y styles of hands.
And so now, I mean, this is exactly what I mentioned in game number 1. I have often found that if I throw a 1-drop here, you're just throwing it to die to a hero power. So I fully expect Bunnyhoppor to load up both of these on turn 2.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
And then so that way, even in the midst of hero power, you get some pressure rolling. And here, I think this is a clear Dire Frenzy take.
That's definitely what I'm most heavily leaning towards here. Yeah. I mean, it's in keeping with his philosophy still, I think. It's an ability to, after he goes double 1-drop on turn 2, quite Dire Frenzy is bloomin' scary then.
Yeah. That might change the 1-drops play.
It's possible. Man, this is like the start of a hand that will go insane. This is going to do something great. And I, for one, cannot wait.
I wonder.
I think it's Direwolf Alpha. It's hard to kill. The Dire Frenzy target lets you trade over whatever minion Kolento could and maybe would play.
Kolento has taken out Frostbolt from the deck. Bunnyhoppor does not necessarily know that that is the case.
Yes.
Although he will anticipate it, I think. But it's not that obvious that Kolento would switch over to his secondary here.
Yeah, to me, it's actually quite innocuous that he might switch over to it. I mean, it wasn't like Rabble Bouncer was protecting against wide pressure.
It's usually very obvious here so far in Grandmasters when a player would switch deck lists.
Yeah.
But Kolento's strategy is a lot more tricksy. It leaves Bunnyhoppor guessing.
Against slower decks, it's very obvious what he'll do. He has 2 power creations in one of his decks.
Yeah, right. Against Warrior, you have one game plan only.
Okay, well, Kolento is in trouble.
I mean, he is going to be taking a lot of damage early on, but his hand is no slouch either.
It's not, but
Bunnyhoppor will hit him very hard.
Yeah. Like, Raid Leader, he tells it like it is. Hit it very hard. And that's exactly what Bunnyhopper's going to do. 5 5s for 2 mana in the deck, +1 in play, is very scary. It's extremely scary. I'm scared, and I'm not even playing.
Gotta be honest, I just peed my pants a little bit. I'm that scared. Yeah, Bunnyhoppor giving it a good old think, as he so often does. But I think you and I can both agree, this is one of Mage's biggest weaknesses. What is he going to do here? Okay, this is something that he could do here. This hand is now a little bit more interesting. So
you got to set up for it for a turn, though.
So are we likely to just see Evocation Giant on this turn?
Oh.
Like, okay, obviously it's super scary against Deadly Shot. Kolento is behind, though, so he has to start taking risks. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Right. So if they don't have the Deadly Shot...
What about Evocation Giant, Evocation Mana Cyclone? How does that look?
Okay. It still obviously would be vulnerable to a Deadly Shot, but it would involve sinking 5 damage into the 2/2 first to guarantee
I think this is much more responsible.
Responsible lineup.
Yeah. This is much more responsible. You can afford to take some amount of damage. Oh. look at that. He's preemptively loading up to have the board stick around. So that way, in the face of him playing a giant next turn, another evocation as well. So in the face of a giant next turn, it means that Bunnyhoppor would have to spend time clearing if he's going to land Deadly Shot.
Okay.
So you sacrifice some life, I think, to protect yourself from, I think, getting too tempoed out when you just simply play giant.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I guess that Bunnyhoppor kept 2 cards in the mulligan, neither of which have been seen so far. So I think Kolento very possibly is making a read that Deadly Shot is in the hand.
Which is super reasonable.
Right.
Like, that is undoubtedly one of the ways you should be thinking about the matchup.
It gets a little bit more interesting because Bunnyhoppor was on the coin, and I would imagine when you're on the coin, Deadly Shot becomes a lot less valuable of a keep because your opponent is less likely to go for a Mountain Giant play early on.
I think it's just such a key card.
Okay. I can see that. As the ability to clear here for Bunnyhoppor
I forgot.
is pretty clear. The Dire Wolf. Yeah. Even weaving in the hero power, it looks like here as well. Or at the very least, sending that face first and figuring out what we do with the rest of the turn afterwards. I guess this is paying creed to some kind of nonsense that could occur with needing to Deadly Shot.
You kill the Mana Cyclone so it can't kill your Timberwolf. If Kolento wants to kill it, that's 2 mana he's got to spend.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Missing 2 damage there to keep a 2-1 alive, that makes sense. And still has those 2 cards in his starting hand that have not been played yet. Obviously, he was not intending to play them early on, but it's super interesting to see the way that he has envisioned this game shaping out.
I mean, there's a pretty large amount of redundancy amongst the rest of the cards in the deck. You know, you think about there's 6 1-cost minions.
That's fair.
The 2 Dire Frenzies, Master's Call, Animal Companion. Like, the rest of the cards kind of serve a similar purpose.
They're all just stuff you can play.
Yeah.
Observe.
And everything threatens Dire Frenzy, which, you know, something like Blessing of Kings-ish plays are, you know, it's what this deck is weak to, really.
And Kolento here, he's just dying. He can throw down the Giant on this turn, which we can see would not get Deadly Shotted. But does he just die?
He's got to find defense. Like,
he's super close.
What I'm looking at is Kolento needs to find, like, in his head, mirror image and be able to protect himself while he goes for big swing turns. He needs to find Conjurer's Calling to be able to do something about it. Like, the Giant alone is still threatened by the Deadly Shot that he perceives from Bunnyhoppor's side. So Bunnyhoppor keeping this linchpin style of play, Kolento just feels forced into having to take the risk.
Yeah.
Oh no, he empties the hand to not overdraw.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to get Conjurer's Calling, right? That's his out at this point, I think.
So Direwolf and Timberwolf.
Was that a 2-2 or a 5-5 version? I didn't see there.
I didn't quite catch it either. I mean, Bunnyhoppor can push 9 damage this turn. But the whole point of the Timberwolf is to service with the Unleash the Hounds.
Yes.
So I think 8 damage is pretty darn close to the same.
Yeah, I would be very happy with Direwolf Hero Power Ping. You're not playing too much into Rabble Bouncers or Sea Giants, and you just want to get in those hero powers every single turn now to play around, to have the ability to kill your opponent over the top of the big grave.
There's no Ziliax anywhere in Kolento's lists.
Yeah.
The only way for him to actually heal is randomly generated Ice Barrier.
Which does not even heal if your opponent doesn't connect face for the rest of the game. So if Bunnyhoppor gets him down to hero power range, the game just ends.
And finally, something found for Kolento in terms of defense.
It's something.
We have found the turn.
So what are we actually looking at on this turn? Like, Evocation, which is the card on the far left. Giant is 2 mana.
Yeah, you got to make something happen.
You just got to play your cards here, right?
Reflect.
Well, Sorcerer's Apprentice protects from the Deadly Shot, sometimes. The Ray of Frost protects from the minions getting cleared.
He hits the Conjurer's
Calling is found.
Right, this is a game now. That was the out he needed to go for, and he hit it.
Wow. Wow.
I mean,
big deal.
How much damage does Bunnyhoppor even have over the top, though? If we see double Ray of Frost here to freeze both of them.
Unleash the Hound's Timberwolf are 3 attack minions from the right side. So he gets to clear off just the Grave Horror in this instance with that combo.
So would he even want to do that?
Well, if you don't do it, there's a chance your direwolves get traded off and you never land the Unleash the Hounds with 3 attack.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a weird spot now.
Oh, instead he's double killing
Uh-oh.
the smaller direwolf alpha.
Oh, that's bad news.
Uh-oh is right.
That's really bad news.
I mean, this is going to be the quickest turn you
yeah.
see Bunnyhoppor take in a while.
I mean, he just deals 6 extra damage here. Plus he gets the hero power, 7, 8. I mean, Kolento's dead next turn.
Kolento's just dead next turn. He needs to win the game, which is literally impossible.
Because all the wolves shift over next to the direwolf alpha. Positioning matters. And Bunnyhoppor trying to figure out, is there any way I lose if I go face? Nope.
I don't think so.
I can't think of anything. Astral Rift Ziliax.
Okay, yep. Those are the outs we're looking for, right? Astral Rift into Ziliax or whatever, any healing card, basically. Ziliax obviously being the premier option. He's just got to hit something. He obviously can choose to live in the world where, or he can believe that Bunnyhoppor does not have kill command, because if it's in hand, he can say, I lose every time anyway. So let's play around the times when he doesn't have it, because maybe I can win there by setting up 2-turn lethal. I think that's probably his best chance, to be honest. Like, if he goes Book of Spectres and hits Khadgar, Conjurer's calling for a bunch of Grave Horrors, push face, and then try and close out the game next turn.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's only 6 your mana, so you can Astral Rift first if you really want to.
Fine, good point. Yeah, let's do both.
Yep, this is... When luck shuts the door, you got to open up the window, but he's going to say... He's going to say the safe plays are the only way I can win. I have to make something crazy happen. I have to deliver lethal next turn. And so you counterattack in the base of that.
He's thinking maybe he can get Leroy off of Astral Rift or something silly.
Maybe Bunnyhoppor doesn't have a kill command. Maybe he doesn't have the extra damage, but he even draws the baited arrow.
Of course you play the baited arrow off the top.
Wow. Bunnyhoppor 2-0 over Kolento. And you can see the importance of Bunnyhoppor's opening keep, an unusual choice.
It's true.
I would say from an intuitive perspective to keep Unleash the Hounds and Timberwolf. Your opponent is not playing an aggressive deck.
Yes.
But what they are doing is when they go onto board, they're often making wider boards. And so having the minion buffs with Direwolf Alpha and with Timberwolf play a critical role when you're talking about killing high health minions. And I think that that is such a good understanding of the matchup that I learned exactly why I'm having trouble with a lot of my mulligans with this deck.
And I think your point of redundancy in the deck is a really good point, because the rest of your deck is so much stuff that you can just play onto the board. It doesn't have any conditional effects that it needs to meet, or conditional requirements, sorry. But then you have a backup plan, because if your opponent doesn't go wide on board, you don't need the Timberwolf Unleash, but you just win anyway, because they haven't done anything, and you've just hit them in the face every turn. If they do go wide, you can just kill them with the Timberwolf Unleash play. He had both eventualities really nicely covered with that mulligan.
A great understanding, and you can see why Bunnyhoppor has been one of the most dominant players on on the tour for the last year or so. We have an interview with Bunnyhoppor ready. Bunny, can you hear us?
Yep.
Congratulations on another win this week. You're 2-0. With this Hunter deck now. Talk me through that matchup versus Kolento. You know, this was one that Derek and I had a lot of questions about on who was favored in this one. And in game number 2, you actually kept Unleash the Hounds and Timberwolf in your opening hand. Walk me through some of the important things in this matchup and what really swings it into your edge.
So yeah, I wasn't quite sure about the Timberwolf Unleash keep, but I'm pretty sure you always keep Unleash in this matchup if you're on the coin, because he plays this Magic Dart Frog version, which is a little bit different to what other people play, which has actually a quite decent time fighting back on board, because he goes Frostbolt and Arcane Missiles. And you need to swing back after that, because if you get to turn 10 and you have Zul'jin in hand, you generally do win the matchup. So you kind of need this bounce back effect. And in my third list, I have a lot of minions, so if I hit any of them, I'm fine. I can't play any 1-drop on 1 anyways going second. So that's the main idea there.
And how long did it take you to find an iteration like that? Like, how much practice versus theory goes into making that choice?
Like from the get-go, I would have never kept Unleash, but after practicing against his deck in particular, I realized that there is quite a bunch of games where he grabs the board, I have to kind of stall out, and then his next turns are a little bit dry because he plays like his only threats is really Tony and then 2 Mountain Giants, and the Sea Giant just almost never hits the board. So you can give them really awkward turns, and then you just, especially in the first list, I have like 2 Unleash the Beast, and you just put 5/5s on the board, and they're incredibly awkward to handle late game if they don't have a good answer.
Do you have a guess of how much time that took, just curiously?
I think I spent a good 5 hours on this particular matchup because I practiced it before submission, and like for at least 2 or 3 hours, and then after submission probably another 2 or 3.
It's a lot of practice to be putting into that matchup, and we can clearly see that you put Kolento into a lot of awkward situations. But in game 1, you were put into a bit of an awkward situation yourself with the having to trade off your huge scavenging hyena in that early game. How easy of a choice was for you was that to just trade that in instead of trying to buff it up with the Unleash the Hounds there and keep it alive?
Unleash is just super important in this matchup. I don't want to give it away for 2H. I'm basically just playing a 3-mana card which says buff my hyena for 2/2, and he has like, I don't know, 2 Dart Frogs, a Frostbolt, and 2 Arcane Missiles, which on average all kill that thing. So I don't know, it's like this 2 HP have just about no value, whereas I think the Unleash later in the game came in like was pretty important late in the game. So that decision was like, I was actually kind of happy that a hyena traded into the giant at the end, because otherwise I would have had no answer there.
Was that a tough choice for you on that tracking, by the way, the Scavenging Hyena versus the Unleash the Hounds, or is that also a pretty easy choice?
No, that was super hard. Because you want to be able to, you want to play that hyena and you want to slam it down, because the Dart Frog turns against the hyena are super awkward, right? They kill all the 1 HP minions first, and they buff the hyena while the Dart Frog goes off. I also started the turn a little bit too late, so that was just too tough, but I like Unleash a lot in the matchup.
Wait, Bunnyhoppor started the turn a little bit too late. Are you sure about that?
Yes. I mean, I don't, like, when there's decision, I try to not start when it ropes, but I don't know, like, you can also play 2 1-drops and just hope they don't have it, but that's, against his list, it actually just makes no sense whatsoever.
All right. Well, I think a lot of insight into not only your practice, but some tips on the matchup as well. You know, I've been playing a lot with this, and I had some struggles, and I slowly started to figure some things out. But I think I got a pretty great lesson in this matchup right here. Bunny, congratulations on your win, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
He's so smart.
He's so smart. I mean, who would have thought that against a deck that just plays big minions, basically, that Unleash the Hounds would be the cornerstone of your strategy?
Well, what do you mean, Darok? When your opponent's making a bunch of 7/8 taunts, you don't want to make a bunch of 1/1s with charge?
I guess you do.
Sounds right to me if I don't think about it. But when I see it, it makes a lot more sense. 4th match in the books. Bunnyhoppor takes it by a 2-0 score over Kolento, which means 2 more matches today. We have Viper versus Fenomeno coming up next. Don't go anywhere. It's European Hearthstone Grandmasters.